first welcome Ms. Lainey Roulard. She's from the Lawyers for Truth and from the Council of Alberta Lawyers. Please come on up, Lainey. Wherever you like. The next lady I've met a number of times at different events, very, very engaged in the political community, an absolute mover and shaker from Standard, Alberta, Ms. Catherine Kowalchuk, also from the Lawyers for Truth and the Council of Alberta Lawyers. And then finally, Mr. Roger Strong. Mr. Roger, come on up. He's also from the Council of Alberta Lawyers. Thank you, sir. Have a seat.
That's a
Wonderful.
Crazy,
and everybody's
crazy old picture.
Hairstyle's a little different. Alrighty. So we don't have presentations. We actually have a number of questions here. Roger, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. So the UCP government has recently announced the need to address what it views as overreach by professional organizations. They cite the example of Dr. Jordan Peterson, for example, as an example. Do you support this decision? Why or why not?
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes, I support this initiative. The reason is that what the initiative is about just to bring back the regulated bodies back to their mandate under the legislation. And I'm going to share you what I experienced over the last 4 years. To start with, just give you a little bit about my background. From my accent, you can see that I'm not native speaker. I came from China. I grew up in China. I joined the party of the Communist Party 40 years ago when I was attending law school in China. But I experienced the June 4th massacre in 1989. That was a wake-up call. So I decided that I cannot live under this regime to let my children to receive the same things I have experienced. So it took me 4 years eventually to come out of the country, and eventually I came to Canada 2000. And in Canada I was transformed by the grace of God from a member of the Communist Party to a Christian. So also by the grace of God, I was given the opportunity in Canada to go back to law school, to University of Calgary Law School to attend the JD program, so I could become a lawyer at age of 50. So all this, what I want to say is that, but then 4 years before, back like 2020, I suddenly received an email from the Law Society, which says that every lawyers have to take a mandatory culture training. And you have to do this training by a certain time in the form that is acceptable to the benchers. If you fail to do that by the prescribed time, you will be automatically suspended. Right? But when I took that program is not based on truth. There's no citation, there's no discussion. Right? There's a disclaimer of any academic and professional value of that program. But for this type of program, more than 10,000 lawyers are forced to take. And if they don't take, they will get suspended. So last year, more than 60 lawyers were suspended. And this year, another 40 lawyers were suspended. So when I saw this type of a notice, I think something is wrong here in Canada, because this is not Canada I came from, right? So I spearheaded a letter back in 2021 to have a petition for a special meeting to strike down that rules that gave the Law Society the power to impose this type of a program of indoctrination, right? And then we were defeated during the special meeting of the lawyers. But then in July last year, I and another 60 Canadian citizens, including 30 lawyers from Alberta, 60 lawyers from other provinces like Ontario, Quebec, and BC, and 26 professionals, wrote a letter to the Law Society, basically raised the concern that Law Society is going too far. They just go beyond their mandate. They're using their regulatory power to engage politics, to impose mandatory cultural indoctrination. But guess what? I didn't receive any response. Right? So eventually, last year, October, I filed my originating application against the Law Society and asking the court to declare that those political initiatives, those rules that give the Law Society this unrestricted power to impose politics, to impose this EDI ideology is null and void, is illegal. Right? So that's why I'm so pleased that last Wednesday I see that the announcement by the Alberta government, by Premier Daniel Smith and our Mr. Justice, that the government is going to rein in and start a negotiation, start a dialogue and conversation with professionals to seek the feedback from the lawyers, from other professionals like doctors on their opinion whether their regulated body are exceeding their legislative mandate and authority. So that's why I support this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just
I've got a question for you. So,
I just want to, it's related to this.
Sure.
Though. What everybody needs to understand is that 2 days after Premier Smith announced this initiative of reviewing regulatory bodies, the Law Society of Alberta wrote all of its members to tell us how much they supported it, but that they would be administering to the members a survey that they would gladly, we assume, hand to the government. So, we have a situation here where a regulatory body that's under scrutiny right now wants to provide us the survey through itself and trust us to get the information back to the government. That's where we're at. So this is what they do, the manipulation behind closed doors, and so we're on it though. We've written a strongly worded letter.
I know of a guy
We
that
need
used
to
to do
bring
that.
this to everybody's attention because this is how it works, right? This is how they grab hold of the issue, and that's how they manipulate the outcome.
Thank you. I know of a guy that used to write strongly worded letters. Catherine, so next question's for you. Considering recent court decisions that upheld COVID-19 related restrictions, what do you see as the greatest threat to individual rights today from a conservative legal perspective? And the second part of that question. Additionally, what actions, if any, can people take to protect themselves from potential government overreach? What needs to change?
Well, during COVID, Lonnie and I actually co-founded Lawyers for Truth, and we did our best to educate people about what was going on and what we thought our rights were under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And people would ask us, why aren't things going well? And the simple answer is this: we're raising little communists. This is what's happening. Okay? So, let me explain to you what I mean by that. The United Nations has a huge grip on Canada. We are a member state, and of course, the subsidiary organizations are playing a more influential role in our country and in our province as well. We have a massive worldview crisis happening right now in the province and within our country. We used to be, or we were, I want to be, a country where we recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And that was basically ignored, but it's been slowly deteriorating over the past number of decades, and more specifically, our academia, our political structures, our governments, our institutions have all been infiltrated, and it's been a slow process, but it's been very effective. And it's been so effective that right now in our primary and secondary schools, we have children believing that men can become women and women can become men. The children are continuing to be taught SOGI and Pride and other DEI initiatives in school. They're reciting and listening to land acknowledgements day in and day out. So that's number one. Number two, our universities are indoctrinated with the DEI ideology, okay? This is dangerous. We have the University of Calgary Law School and the University of Alberta Law School, who both have DEI programs and departments within the law school, where the focus of the program is to bring a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusivity lens into research, into instruction, into all aspects of the law school experience. In addition to that, they have affirmative action policies that are discriminatory. So at U of C, if you're Indigenous or if you identify as Black or are Black, I don't even know what the difference is, but in those cases, if you fall under that category and the merit-based system, the LSAT score and whatever metric that they're using to get into law school for everybody else, if that's not met, these people have an opportunity to share their lived experience and whatever else they're going to speak about in order to be considered for admission into law school. Next, we have the Law Society of Alberta, who is completely enamored with DEI initiatives. Roger's already explained to you that recently they've incorporated a cultural competency training as a requirement to practice law. And so this is the reason why we are not seeing results. It's because these little people are indoctrinated at a very young age. They are fed this stuff in our universities, in law schools. These people become lawyers. These lawyers are fed the same BS and required thinking, indoctrination while they're practicing law, and these people become judges. This is the dot connection, because until we eradicate this woke mind virus from our schools and our institutions and our legal profession, nothing is going to change.
Thank you.
Nothing's going to change.
Thank you, Catherine.
That's right.
All right. Yeah. A number of more questions here. So, Lonnie, Premier Danielle Smith has proposed amendments to the Alberta Bill of Rights, and we just talked about this thing. To what extent might these changes strengthen Albertans' rights and protect them from potential future government overreach or violations, recognizing that what the government grants, it can also take away? What steps can Albertans take to protect themselves from further government overreach?
Council the Bill of Rights. Oh,
There we go. Can you hear me? Okay. You know what? I had a rant the other day, and I sent a friend of mine who I can see in the audience a little spiel about the Bill of Rights because I was kind of in a bad mood and it was making me mad. So I'm going to read it, okay? And it's really short. Don't worry, I won't keep you here all night because I have something else really important to say. But I don't know where this came from, but I think it's bang on. So that's why I cut and pasted it. It says, a governing body receives its power and legitimacy from the people through our legislation. If our system has been inverted such that our government is telling us what our rights are, is that not communism? Lest we forget, by recognizing the rights they define for us, we are recognizing their ability to limit or dispose of them entirely at their will. This has already happened, or the Bill of Rights would not have been contemplated in the first place. That's what I think of the Bill of Rights.
Thank you very much, Lonnie.
I have something else to say.
Please.
Can I talk about a case? Because there's a really important case I want to tell everybody about. This is in tandem with the Law Society, and I think it's a wonderful compliment of my colleagues here tonight and just thank you everybody for being here. I want to take this a step further because I want to show what's going on in court. You don't know this individual, but there's a very brave lawyer, and she's also part of Lawyers for Truth, and she, if you can imagine it, has faced threats to her career now for 4 years at the hands of the Law Society. And this is all originating from witnessing mask and vaccine notices of liability, which we've probably all seen a few of those here and there. This person has been pursued to the point where the Law Society has now set this matter down for hearing without complying with the requirements for the Legal Profession Act. So how does that happen? Well, we weren't sure, and we went to a hearing, and they made the decision that they didn't have to comply, that those requirements were not relevant. And they set the matter for hearing. We got our decision, and then we filed for judicial review with the Court of King's Bench. When we got there, I showed up at court, and the Law Society lawyer was there, and she introduced herself, and we went up to the judge. And the judge looked at us and said, you know, there's a Supreme Court of Canada case, and you better go into the hallway there, because I'm going to set this down for trial, which is exactly what I wanted, to show that the Law Society was not complying with the legislative requirements. And they said, go out in the hallway and discuss this, because that Supreme Court of Canada case, that's going to make me set it down for trial. So go get consent from your client, speaking to the Law Society lawyer. So we went out into the hallway, and I'm not much of a cell phone person. I'm not good with electronics. So I watched and I listened. And this lawyer went down the hallway, called the Law Society, had some chats, came back, told me she had consent. The consent she had obtained was to, number one, adjourn the disciplinary hearing, and number two, to adjourn all of these matters that I had before the court into a judicial review. And we needed this because at this point in time, they didn't want to disclose the transcripts either. So how can you run a case when they won't give you the transcripts that led to the decision? That's where we were stuck. So we went into the courtroom after having agreed that we were going to adjourn the Law Society's disciplinary hearing, which was not properly constituted, and we were going to set all the matters down for a hearing for judicial review. We entered it on the record in front of the justice, and the justice accepted this. So we had our order. Number one, we're going to a hearing in the Court of King's Bench, and number two, we're adjourning the disciplinary hearing. The next morning, I got to work, and the Law Society lawyer had emailed the judge and decided that she had been told that despite advising me in writing that she had been retained to act for the Law Society, despite obtaining the Law Society's consent in the hallway at court, and despite entering the consent order onto the court record in front of the justice, and despite the justice accepting the court order, that's final, that they were revoking half of it. And guess what? They did it. They did it. So I want to, this may seem like Flat Stanley, but I want to explain the significance of this. We're now up in the Court of Appeal. We've got our appeal filed, and we've met all the timelines. They put us on a fast track where our factum was due before we even had leave to appeal. And we don't have leave to appeal yet, okay? But let me put it to you this way. If leave to appeal, this case is denied, this will provide justices in Alberta with the discretion to alter, reverse, or amend a court order subsequent to court. Will it not? Because that's what's happened. And not only that, when I went to order the transcript, it was strange because all the names were flipped. It looked like I was giving myself consent. So we had to get the transcript fixed before we could even go to the Court of Appeal. And then we went to the Court of Appeal. Good thing I'm working with a really smart lawyer on this case, because we both had to write all the briefs together. We had about 2.5, 3 weeks to get them all together, filed, served. Yeah, that's the fast track rules. So I just want to let you know, because it starts with a rule, like Roger said, where they're compelling our education, and it spins forward to the point where they start compelling our values. And please beware, and this is a word of warning from myself and from a lawyer, probably from my colleagues too. that there may come the day when you wake up and you've got a square hole problem, and you leave the house and you're looking for somebody that can fix that problem in that shape and description. But you find that all you got are triangular lawyers out there. They're not allowed to deal with you, and if they were, they're gone. So this is what we have to look at in our systems, whether we're dealing with our doctors, like Dr. Mack is, whether we're dealing with the lawyers who want to uphold their oaths, who are trying to, or whether we're in court trying to tell the truth and get this on record for history. But I just want you to know, yeah, the systems are coordinated. And what's ironic about what I just said is that if I look in the Code of Conduct, I'm not supposed to say this, really? I mean, I'm not supposed to speak poorly about the system, but yet, on the other hand, I have an ethical obligation to protect its integrity. And to tell you the truth, I'm at a loss and I don't know how to do it. So I'm here.
Thank you, Lonnie. I've got 3 questions I could probably compress to in the next 9 minutes. So we're going to call it 3 minutes a question, if that's possible. Catherine, I'll go back down the panel. So Catherine, the Premier has frequently stated that her hands were tied or her wings were clipped. From a legal perspective, and Dr. Mack has actually alluded to this, I love this is all tying together. From a legal perspective, what entities or institutions could hold more power than the Premier? Who is the highest elected representative of the people? Furthermore, what checks and balances are in place to protect citizens from an overreaching government or an unchecked judicial system?
Well, first of all, God, okay? God is where we derive our rights and freedoms, and government is there, or supposed to be there, to protect citizens, but not in the way of safe and effective vaccines that are not vaccines. More so, you know, from I would say more of a defense, a tactical defense way of defending. Danielle Smith did say that her wings were clipped at the Tucker Carlson thing event, and I was really surprised that she had said that, but not surprised. I think people who have been paying attention understand that these sorts of decisions, the decisions of who's going to be in these leadership roles, I think are coordinated at a higher level. But more to the point, we are being governed by unelected bureaucrats in Davos, Switzerland, with the United Nations, with the World Health Organization, with the World Economic Forum. And it's not only that, I had the privilege of speaking to many people, including former elected officials, who've confirmed with their multiple years of experience in their legislature or parliament that it's greased. You get, the decisions are made based on the corporate lobbyists and special interest groups. And we can see that, I think, more clearly every day with the decision making and what happens generally with our courts, with our governments. And so we have to, I recognize that this is the way it is and the way it has been, and that's why I've been so adamant about advocating for change in a meaningful way. And it's about voting for people and bringing people into power, or whatever that means, who are prepared to not live by lies. And right now, all of the elected officials, from my perspective, currently sitting, are cowards, and they're compromised. And Danielle Smith, if you are listening, tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Because everything is at stake here. We have what is happening right now, and I wonder, and I put this out to the group here. Bill C-293, and I think one of your questions is coming up about Bill C-293. The Pandemic Preparedness Act that has just passed Senate and the federal government. I wonder why, Danielle Smith, did your government not know that it was on the radar at the first reading? And why didn't you alert Albertans as to the concerns about the impacts of Bill C-293? And why did your government wait until after it had passed Senate to alert Albertans about exactly what could and will happen to them?
Thank you, Catherine. Roger. Premier Danielle Smith has spoken out against discrimination on several occasions, and we touched upon this. However, the Government of Alberta job postings, such as those of Alberta Invest or the Sheriffs, continue to promote DEI hiring practices. Well, the question is this approach just? How have legal institutions evolved to the point where selective hiring practices are now encouraged? And what would you propose as a solution?
Well, that's a great question. I think first of all, I don't think it is right to use this criteria of DEI to select employees. And second of all, I want to share with you that this DEI, the idea, actually originated from biblical worldview, from the Word of God. Let me explain it to you. In terms of the equity, so the God's justice and mercy is the perfect combination of equity for everyone. In terms of diversity, God's creation is the perfect diversity. And in terms of the inclusiveness, God's salvation includes everyone. It's the perfect inclusion. But the problem of the DEI is that they have this beautiful idea, but exclude God. That is the problem. Because if you exclude God, if you exclude the principles that recognize the supremacy of God, guess who? Guess what? Who is going to define what is diversity? What is equity? What is inclusiveness? The person who are in power. What is that? That is dictatorship. Right? Same thing with communism. That's where it came from. My dad, my parents, they were all attracted by this idea of communism. They were believing that they will build a paradise on earth under the leadership of the Chinese People's Communist Party. But what happened in reality during the 3-year period from 1959 to 1962, 35 million people in China starved to death because of the literal implementation of this communism regime. Right? So that's the danger of the DEI. Right? So in terms of the solution, the solution that I can only see is that let's go back to our culture of Christianity. Let's go back to God.
Thank you, Roger.
God is freedom. God is justice. God is mercy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. All right, my final question really goes out to all three of you, so last couple of minutes here, feel free to answer it as a panel together or as a discussion. Bill C-293, which you talked about, Catherine, is currently before the Senate. The Alberta government last week requested that the Senate reconsider this bill in its current form. Could you explain how this legislation might impact Albertans, particularly in the event of another pandemic? And what actions can the Alberta government take to safeguard its citizens from potential overreach by unelected global organizations?
That's a good idea.
I'm going to start this one off because I think we're in for a surprise. I really do. I mean, think of COVID as kind of a round one, right? And in round one, what happened legally is that the government created policies that distorted the law, and then they told you that was the law, and then they had you enforce it for them because they knew it wasn't the law. Okay? We should be terrified of what's coming next, because the second time around, they're going to have laws. They're going to have paperwork. Are you going to fall for it this time? That's the question. So, I get so frustrated when I talk about this stuff. So, I want to say that round one was just about normalizing this chaotic behavior. It was about passing policies, trying to put it off as legislation, and rewiring your minds to think your rights are something that they've basically discarded. It's a past, okay? Round 2 should terrify you, because if you looked at Bill 293, you're gonna see everything in there from tracking technology to the ability to control animal protein or non-animal protein. We're talking food supply. So basically, they got you warmed up through the first round of COVID. But now they're writing all the paperwork, as I say it, to line the litter box. And that's exactly what they're doing. So don't forget that there is a big technological piece coming in here. And it's your professionals, okay? They have just started, and the Law Society has partnered with a company called Real Amy, it's AI, so that when you come into an office, it's not coming into an office just yet, but let me tell you how it works. This month, they discontinued a lawyer's ability to sign things remotely. Do you think some of the lawyers are gonna like that? No, they're not gonna like that, are they? Because they gotta put their pajama bottoms in the drawer and actually put the full suit on, okay? But the thing is that now, what they're gonna do is they're gonna use our professionals as a gateway. And what this means is that if you want to access professional services, you're gonna have to give up the goods. All of us are.
Your ID.
So they've started this now. They've ended the remote rural. Okay, never did that. Let's not do this. And then what they did is they introduced an authentication of ID. So if you want to sign documents in your pajama bottoms now, you're gonna have to authenticate your ID through an AI software database, and the lawyer will have to do that for you, okay? So I'm still meeting in person, getting ID in person, but how long will it be before that army has grown, and the screams have grown louder, and those pajama bottom lawyers do not want to leave the house? Maybe they've got agoraphobia now, okay? And basically, then we turn that little army on the rest. We tell them it's about fraud, and we force everybody to do it. And guess what? They've got your identities. And it's gonna be like that everywhere. It's coming. It's coming. So keep that in mind as well.
Well,
Thank you, Lonnie. We've just got a couple more minutes, Catherine, so if we
just
could
to
wrap
top it
up.
up, last month, or in September of this year, the United Nations, all 193 countries ratified or affirmed with the Pact of the Future, a document accelerating the Sustainable Development Goals implementation. So they are ready to turbocharge this. In addition, they have a big digital component to this, which includes the managing, of course, and protection of misinformation, disinformation, and all the rest of this nonsense. And that's what you're seeing with the other pieces of legislation that Trudeau and the NDP federally have brought in, including Bill C-4, Bill C, I think 63, or the Online Harms Act, so-called Online Harms Act, where they're strengthening the and furthering the definition of what is a hate crime. And Bill C-4, if you don't know, is the conversion therapy bill, where if you are a professional, and I think it will be taken as far as if you are a parent and you refuse to affirm your child, then you can also go to jail. So that's what we have to look forward to as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Roger, anything to add before we conclude?
Yes, the last thing I want to add is that under the 1982 Charter, Constitution Act of Canada, and under the common law, the foundation to a free and democratic society is the principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. So let's go back to that foundation. Thank you.
Yeah, and let's start it in our schools, right down here.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our legal panel today, Lonnie, Catherine, and Roger.